Hello, everybody, and welcome to this sort of filter episode of Battle Chads. I'm Josh, and I'm here with one of my co-hosts, Sam. Hi, Sam.
Hi Josh, how we doing?
I am great. We've had a big news right now today from Wizards,
Yep,
BnR
yep.
Day.
It's been a day I've been looking forward to for a while,
Yep.
so it's nice that it's finally here. And there's been some good news for Standard. If your particular Battle Chat host, who's not here, who's currently out celebrating some of what we've seen today, but no, it's been a long time coming, I think, Josh.
Yes. So I'll sort of explain this episode. This episode is going to come ahead of our already recorded episode for this week, where we sort of speculate retrospectively what the bands are going to be. Obviously, the recording that we made was before the BnR. And the topic that we're going to talk, we've actually talked about on that pod is actually quite interesting. So I'm looking forward to share that with us. That should be released in the next couple of days. But we needed to get our instant reactions to these bands because, as a legacy player, particularly, it wasn't completely what I expected. Although it wasn't far from the reach of expectations. But what was interesting, no
Mm.
changes in standard, as you alluded to. Is this a good thing?
Yep. I think so. I think so. It's kind of odd to talk about what we're discussing on the last episode when that episode isn't out yet, but we
Yeah.
kind of alluded to, like, I think we all agreed on it was either good to go all in or
Mm-hmm.
not touch it at all.
Yep.
And I think we agreed that, well, we wouldn't be too surprised if we saw either side of that. If they did a lot, that's fair enough. And if they didn't do anything, that's fair enough. I think that Dragon's Talk here is looking to be a strong set and have some standard impactful cards. And from that point of view, it does make sense to hold off a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly enough, in the article they shared, they didn't mention because for those who are new to standard or maybe don't play standard at all, there's the big three as people referring it to is this town ain't big enough,
Mm-hmm.
up the beanstalk,
Yeah.
and monstrous rage is a potential. Right, let's get these out of here. But they discussed this town, and I don't think they discussed the other two at all.
No,
So
this.
that
Yeah.
just a little insight into how
Mm-hmm.
Wizards are actually thinking at the moment.
Yeah, they did mention this town, but we do sort of believe that the trifecta of modern right now is the sort of this town decks, the Beans decks, and the Monstrous Rage decks. And I do think that if you banned one of them, it's sort of like an all or nothing sort of thing.
Yeah.
And Wizards went with nothing, which I completely agree with. Particularly in the we're in the eve of Dragon's Attack here coming out, which looks like a really impactful set for standard. And then
Yep.
obviously in a couple of months after that, you've got the Final Fantasy set coming out, which is in standard. So I think seeing how the format sort of develops with the influx of the new cards is probably the correct way to approach it, especially with the time frame we're on. And honestly, standard is not like miserable. It's not a miserable format. Like, it's a really interesting format, really fun, feels relatively balanced. Rock paper scissors, lots of interesting decks to play. You see all kinds of decks winning. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's a good decision.
Yeah, probably. And especially when we got to bear in mind that this is the first time that there have been so many sets in standards for as long as I've been playing. So it makes sense as for Wizard to sort of see how it goes for the time being. Let's not make any rash decisions because, as Josh has already alluded to,
Mm-hmm.
more sets coming out, especially Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
I imagine they have a wider plan for standard that we just can't see at the moment. So not surprising at all. But yeah, it was odd that everybody sort of knew about the big three, and they only really touched about one or touched upon one in the article at all.
So Pioneer, no changes. I mean, I've not really looked at Pioneer. I've not played Pioneer. I'm not really interested in Pioneer. However, from skimming
Hmm.
over the what the Wizards have said, it seems to be in the sort of combo centric meta that we once knew about Pioneer and what Pioneer sort of struggles with. Big answer. Big questions with no answers, that sort of
Yep.
thing. And I think they're keeping their eye on that format. Have you got anything to mention on that format? Because I don't really have anything to comment on Pioneer other than the fact that what is
No,
Pioneer?
no, there was the Arena Championship over the weekend, wasn't there?
Mm-hmm.
Which was Pioneer, and to be fair, I didn't tune in too much, but when I did, there always seemed to be something somewhat interesting going on. So format looked healthy enough. I imagine too many people aren't surprised about Pioneer being no changes. Let's move on.
It is funny, like I'm just skimming over the Wizards article now with the BnR, which we will link in the show notes for those people living under rocks. Yeah, the Grease Fang is actually mentioned. And I was like, my baby. I actually quite enjoyed Grease Fang when I played. When I played Pioneer, obviously I'm a big Grease Fang enjoyer. But probably the biggest hype for particularly this channel is the modern. We're going into modern season now. Underworld Breach is now banned. Thank the heavens.
Yeah, thank the heavens. You know, thank FASA, thank whoever you want to thank. But I think that this is to the surprise of no one. I think is pretty fair to say.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we discussed it on the pod that you're gonna see, and not one of us and not one modern player can find anywhere would be like, no, let's keep Breach. Breach seems fine. The card's just a design mistake, right?
I agree.
Like as a baseline,
Yeah.
it's Yawgmoth's Will. If Yawgmoth's Will was better, so you know, one of the strongest cards of all time. Nobody's surprised. It's lovely to see it go. It's a shame. It is a shame because that deck has actually existed for quite a while. You know, there was some real fans of that deck, and the deck is kind of cool. It just went from cool to oppressive in a season, essentially, didn't it?
There was like speculation that Mox Opal will get the reban, but I think that would have been incorrect for a couple of reasons. One, I think reputationally, you know, you just unbanned a sort of cards, and it created, you know, when the unbans happened last year with you know, with Lutin, Mox Opal, Green Sun Zenith, and Twin. I think Modern was very exciting. You know, Modern is intrinsically a very exciting format. Probably why it's so diehard in terms of the fans, and why it's probably the premier competitive format in a way. You know, people always. I'm for one. I'll always be checking Modern, even in really dire formats. But I think the banning of Mox Opal, if it was banned, it would be unreasonable because you've got this this baddie in terms of actually the Underworld Breach card itself. It's just like a printing or something away from getting broken anyway. Just get rid of the problem straight away. I quite like that, because if you look actually outside of the Underworld Breach decks, Mox Opal is not really enabling anything too broken. I mean, you've got Affinity. Okay, if you want to beat Affinity, you can. That's fine. The deck's good, but you know, it's like Dredge. When it's, if there's no hate for it, it's good. If there's hate for it, it feels awful. There's the sort of, I guess, cringe, not cringe, I guess kind of cringe, but fringe decks. You know, you've got your blue black sort of artifact-esque decks that have been knocking round, or your Asmo Dada card, Asmo decks. I'm not going to try and say that card name, but you know, the fringe decks that are there, I think, are cool to exist, and I think Mox Opal enable those fringe decks is really cool. It's just a shame that it was a premier enabler for the breach decks.
Yeah, for sure, and it is what it is. I think, honestly, I think you've hit the nail on the head in the both aspects. That one, rebanning Mox Opal would really affect player confidence in the format.
Mm-hmm.
You can do a Golgari Grave Troll because the card was never above a $5. Not that Wizards will never admit that they take into account financial decisions when banning cards, but they definitely do. You know, because it just has to be a thing they're aware of. And then the cool fringe or cringe, depending on how you're looking at Mox Opal decks, so much cooler than a fringe or cringe Underworld Breach deck. The card is inherently unfair. Whereas you've just touched upon, you've got Asmo, the Scene Piles. I was playing a really cool list, which was Glaring Fleshraker from Modern Horizons 3 with Mox Opal. And it's just, it was fun, it was cool. Underworld Breach was one thing. I guess you can kind of see prowess decks being hit on a little bit, because they kind of had a combo finish with a main deck copy of Breach here or there. But realistically, it's the right ban. I think you can argue till the end of time that, well, maybe Mox Opal should never have been unbanned, but that's not the discussion we're having. Breach was definitely the right hit. I'm happy to see it go. And you know, the only surprising element of Modern for me is it's only Breach that got touched. There was a lot of discussions about unbans again, or maybe, you know, somebody like myself was hoping maybe a little bit more. What were your opinions on that, Josh?
I think just banning the one card is fine in modern. Honestly, I think if you looked at modern metas that didn't involve breach, but had almost people were still building the decks to beat breach, even if there was like a meta with no breach in it. People were still sideboarding the Stony Silencers. They were still sideboarding or had main board Graveyard Hate, etc., which did pseudo hate some decks out. I know we saw a decline in sort of Oculus decks. I know we saw that like strictly Graveyard decks such as Dredge have been dead from the format for a long time, but this just sealed the nail in the coffin in those decks anyway. So I do think it's freed up the meta game. Even though there was a lot of variety in modern beyond the breach decks, I do think that one card being banned has have a massive impact on modern. I would like to have seen some unbans, like things. There's cards on the ban list now that are like laughably bad. Like, why are they like? Just let players have them. I quite enjoy people getting excited to play Jank, especially in modern, or brewing in modern because they've of nostalgic cards that they used to play once upon a time being brought back in the format. I wish that players had that again. Things like Birthing Pod, what is that card? Things like Umezawa's Jitte, like what is that card? I even think Fury's fine to unban. Like honestly, like because we'll talk about the winners of modern and in a minute, but essentially, like, there's lots of cards on that ban list that are just laughably bad, and why are they still there? Give them back to players at least. It's I think having the smallest ban list that you can is probably somewhere where Wizards should aim, and especially how well received the last BnR was in modern.
Definitely, and I think that I would like to take away the hope that, look, it's not a bad banned and restricted. I'm not moaning by any means. I think they did the right thing.
I think it's great.
I think it's great, yeah. So I think that considering there's now such a gap between the BnRs, I would like to think that rather than just going, okay, here's Jitte, here's Birthing Pod, and maybe here's something a little bit more powerful, like Golgari Grave Troll, perhaps. Yeah. I think this suggests to me that they are actually going to go away and test cards before unbanning them. Maybe, okay, well, Birthing Pod probably could be unbanned, but let's double check in house to make sure that's safe.
Yeah.
Because they've got a little bit of egg on their face with Mox Opal immediately creating a problem. And I like the idea that they now have 3 months to check the Jitte is okay, check the Hypergenesis is okay, check the Fury is okay to play again.
Yep.
And maybe next time we'll see a bit more drastic action. And I hope so, because I really like the idea that rather than One Horizons 4, we get Pre-Horizons 1 in a series of unbans, and now it's Jitte versus Guide of Souls type gameplay, and it's a really good way to keep people like me and yourself who've been playing Modern for a very long time to see new cards without this insane power creep that we've been seeing.
I just wish they just put Modern Horizons in the toilet. I was really excited. I really enjoyed Modern Horizons 2 meta. And Modern Horizons 3 just sent the format to overdrive a little bit. I do think it's a really exciting format right now. There's lots of avenues for expression. We did say that we'll talk about some winners and losers, particularly in Modern. The biggest winner that I think, and I think you'll agree on this, is Boros Energy. And I'll tell you why. So Boros Energy has been playing this sort of pseudo-control, playing less aggressive cards because they just cannot beat straight-up control. Like, once control goes off, Boros Energy just cannot be it. We looked at when One Ring was around, the meta was Boros Energy and combo decks. So Belcher was really good. So I think Boros Energy has going back to the roots of let's play Fable and Mirror Breakers. Now let's play Blood Moons, and let's get rid of our Ranger Captain of Eoses. I think that it's going to help Boros Energy in its more aggressive game 1 plan. It's not filtered by Thraben Charms in the main board. It's not filtered by little quirky, less aggressive cards in the main board, or Dirtly cards. It's going to be a lot more aggressive, a lot more scary, particularly against, you see the rise in Murktide now. Murktide traditionally had a bad, but was bad into Boros Energy because if it got underneath the Murktide player, then, they're not having a good time. But this also means that not only did by Boros Energy winning, other decks have won. So Belcher really has won. Eldrazi is going to be a lot more played now, a lot more powerful because it's not in the wake of the premier combo deck in the meta. And I do think that the potential losers of this deck might be actual Ketramos decks. Because I think they have a bad matchup into Boros Energy, relatively bad matchup into the Belchers. I know they can play Stony Silencers, but are they going to still play Stony Silencers into
with
a non-breach
Breach Gone, right?
Breach Gone?
Yeah, exactly. And Boros Energy is honestly, now that the ring's gone, I think Boros Energy is a fantastic deck to benefit from something like this.
Mm-hmm.
Again, as we've already touched upon a couple of times, where if you want to tech against a modern deck at the moment, you can. And that's why Breach was so negative, because it ate up 10 sideboard slots and you could still just lose.
Mm-hmm.
That I can see Boros Energy gaining a lot from this, and I like the points that you make. But my question is, what do you think the strongest deck is? Do you think that's Boros, or do you think that's something else?
I think that in a vacuum, if you look at the pure vacuum in that thing, I think Boros will be probably the best deck in a vacuum. I don't think it's unbeatable. I think it's very, if you want to beat Boros Energy, you can. But at the same time, I think Boros Energy punishes you on a level that hasn't been like an aggro deck in a long time, in terms of if you don't draw your tech for that Boros Energy game, that Boros Energy player will overrun you. You know, I see a lot of people playing main board pest controls now, especially in the Esper builds. But then, you know, if they're now playing main board Blood Moons again because they can, because they're not using slots up for main board Teamer breach decks, then your 3-color decks are gonna hurt a little bit. You might have to be careful how you play your mana, how you hold up interaction for Blood Moons, for example. So yeah, I think Boros Energy will be the best deck. I don't think it'll be the most. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't think it'll be the most oppressive deck, or the most oppressive version we've seen of it. Obviously, One Ring's not here anymore, but I do fear that I hope we don't go into that meta of Boros Energy versus combo decks again, or Boros Energy versus linear decks again. Such as, you know, big mana decks, combo decks, etc. I do like the space in between where you can have those other decks, the tempo decks, the control decks, all that sort of stuff.
And when you have that nucleus of a format, it's really healthy. When it is just Boros versus control A, B, or C, do they have the right hate cards? That can be pretty negative. And my biggest fear is Breach is such a strong card, and it's now left a power vacuum. I'm a bit worried that vacuum is going to be picked up by Titan, because Titan's
I think
still really good.
I think there's a line in the sand with Titan that is surpassed. So I think Titan is oppressively good. I think it probably is the premier combo deck in the format. I think it's getting easier to play. Like, once upon a time, I would take the argument that the reason it's not been banned because it's hard to play. I disagree now. I think Titan is very it's so linear. You know, you've got Spelunking put in the format, as long as you have a general understanding of how your stacks work and your lands work with Spelunking, playing a Boreal Grazer, like just getting your Titan out and just playing the same sort of 2 lands, or holding up Atawara for interaction. Like, I don't think it's that hard to play anymore. Like, I don't believe it is, especially after you've got a few reps with it. I do think there's some big brain plays with it, but I honestly think that you're seeing. I mean, what was it? The last Axion Modern, they had back-to-back Titan player beating both days with the same deck, and I think Titan is oppressive enough in the format, particularly in paper, that it needs to be respected. And I think there'll be a time when it needs to be addressed. I think, and I do think that time is gone. But I don't think Wizards will do anything about it until it becomes top of the meta, sort of played more.
Yeah, and it's just the idea that modern players, Josh has already made a great point, that modern players will play modern regardless of what the format looks like. If you look at Utrecht, Utrecht was a Spotlight, a Spotlight series. And there was sort of a players' agreements, and there wasn't that much breach about. So modern players will just play what they want at the end of the day. But I think that I'm worried that I'm a little desperate for a really good modern, and I'm worried that Titan is going to really fill this power vacuum.
I don't think it'll be played enough numbers to be worried about it, but I do think it is an oppressive deck, and it is a feel bad deck.
Yeah, and I fully agree with the point that it used to be difficult. I don't think that's really the case anymore. Sure, is it stronger? Is it harder to play than prowess? Probably, but this sort of idea that people have convinced themselves, well, I can't play Titan because Titan's too difficult to play, so I'm just going to play this instead. I think that veil is pretty thin now, and more people may pick it up. But in paper, it's probably going to still be underrepresented. I also, as a Eldrazi player and someone who's been known to play Eldrazi, I'm so happy we don't have to play Karn anymore main deck.
Hmm.
That's a pretty big win for the Eldrazi decks. Karn's rubbish. Like the amount of times I've played with Karn, and it's you have to because if you get paired up against Breach, it's you need it to win. But Karn is just not a great card. Turns your sideboard into mush as well. So like
Hmm.
I'm happy that we don't get to play that. And then with a new Ugin on the horizon, I think that Eldrazi is a pretty big winner as well.
That Ugin is mental. That's so good.
It's
That's
I
that's
have a
mental.
little tin hat theory that it was rejected from Mon Horizon 3.
Yeah, that is mental. Like mental that
It's
card.
it's crazy.
But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that card another time.
Sorry. Yeah, sure.
Because we'll talk about the here and now, and the here and now is there's been a modern BnR, and it's a one card BnR. However, it is
Hmm.
the impact is mental. You know, we talked about our winners, the losers. Then, I mean, I will add as well to the winners that I think Oculus might be a playable card again because you know. I do know that the white decks are playing, you know, the mainboard graveyard hate, but I do think the
Yep.
overall sort of concentration of mainboard graveyard hate will be reduced because of the breach being out the format. But I think that Oculus has won a little bit in that respect. But I do think the black white decks will be played heavily, and Relic of Progenitors will be seen quite actively within the format because it's enabling Ketramos. I do think, by the way, that the best combination with Ketramos is Psychic Frog. I think people who play Ketramos should be playing Psychic Frog in the deck. So that's why I think Espagorios is actually probably really is a big winner as well for those reasons.
Yeah. So what would you say then? Because honestly, looking at this, I can't really figure out the bigger loser is because it looks like everyone's won a little bit because Breach is gone. So moving forward, what do you think the biggest loser will be?
I think some of the biggest losers will be the actual. I mean, it pains me to say because I've been a type of player myself, but with if Boros Energy gets better, I think Eldrazi gets better, and if Eldrazi gets better, I think the blue black Murktide decks will get worse, especially because Boros Energy and Eldrazi being top of the formats makes it hard for for the blue temple player, especially game one against the Eldrazi decks, and especially when you're doing sort of on the stack triggers. I think they tend to struggle. I think post boarding with consigned to memories the matchup's 50-50. You might disagree with me, Sam, but that's my experience. I think
Yeah, no,
pre-board
I'll
it's
take your
more
word
like
for it.
40-60, 30-70 in favour of Eldrazi. I think
Mm,
Boros Energy game one against the Frog decks now they are playing main board Thoughtseize, which I don't think they should be doing anymore. It just
mm.
helps the Boros Energy's game plan to get you dead. So I think the blue black tempo decks have probably took a bit of an L. I'm trying to think. Let's have a look at the. This is just my instant. This is our fresh instant reactions to the format BnR. Obviously, biggest winner Titan. Breach is obviously the biggest L. Zoo is a deck that's been around. If Zoo does Zoo things, it's fine. Obviously,
Yeah,
now Boros Energy playing Blood Moons and maybe the blue decks playing Harbinger of the Seas main board might ruin that a little bit. Storm probably gets a big plus as well
yeah.
because
If
obviously it's a straight up combo deck into the Boros Energy matchups. I think Mill is probably going to get worse because I think
yeah,
Mill's surgical extract in your combo piece isn't a thing anymore because there's not really going to be a combo piece to surgical, especially when you're
yep.
going to be against Boros Energy and Eldrazi and the like.
Mill losing is great for everyone as well. We'll take that as a secondary
Mm.
win.
I'm not sure about. I think the blue white decks, the black white decks, in the traditional sense, probably takes more of an L again because of the Boros Energy matchups that we said before.
Yep.
Um, yeah,
The
I'm not sure what other decks will take the L. Potentially control decks. not as well placed, but I don't know. I'm not really a control
Yeah,
player.
I think you're spot on. With the biggest losers are going to be Murktide because Murktide is so geared to fight Breach at the moment, and if Boris comes back, then it might be a bit of a painful shift.
Mm-hmm.
And Ketra, if combo decks are coming out of everywhere, Ketra might struggle with that because the deck is a little fair. I know Ketramose itself, once it's online, is crazy, but I think that deck, you play in like Flicker Wisp or something like that. You're playing a bit of these clunky cards,
Yeah.
and a combo deck can take full advantage of that.
The black white deck is 100% playing a low individual card quality, but with high synergy. Yeah, high synergy. Yeah. That's it. It's just like Death and Taxes in Legacy. You're playing a pile of sideboard cards, but together they just do some mental stuff. That's the black white deck, and if you can pressure them. While they're trying to get that engine online or try and do that synergy, then yeah, you're gonna be in a good time. That's why I quite like the frog in there, because you're playing your card quality then gets massive. You get almost like a 1-card win condition in frog that enables your Ketramos, get your Ketramos online, also draws, fuels the frog, etc. So I'm actually going to be doing a league when I finish my work week. I'm going to be doing a league with the Esper frog Ketramos deck with the Overlord, the Balemorks, that sort of stuff.
I've seen you play that. It's a cool deck.
That was a different version I was trying, but I actually not a fan of that version. I think that version is very clunky, and it's trying to do what... I mean, I can go on a tangent of that. I just think it's too clunky, but I think it needs a bit more synergy, which it doesn't have. More threats as well. But yeah, there are winners and losers on Modern. Anything else to add to that, Sam?
No, I am just very excited to play in a breach-free world. I'm excited for combo to be good again. If Breach was so parasitic and so constrictive on the format, it made every other combo deck worse.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to be able to see that diversity a little bit again. And honestly, yeah, great ban.
So we talk about Legacy for a little bit, and then potentially look on to Pauper. So because it's actually a great BnR for Eternal gamers, massive size to Paupers in Eternal format, as everyone else should, along the same lines as Legacy and Vintage. So Legacy, we had Troll of Khazad-dûm banned and Sorin Spawn banned. I said on the pod that is going to be released that I expected that, Sorin Spawn to be banned and Entomb. Obviously, I got that wrong. They chose to ban a common out of the deck to keep an archetype alive, which I completely agree with. I would like to see a little bit more out of Legacy, potentially an unban. But I think Sorin Spawn enables control to be a archetype in the format now, because you can play basic lands. And I also think that getting rid of Troll Khazad-dûm means that if you're in the tempo sort of space of Legacy, then you don't have the 2 game plans of Reanimator, or it's not as easy to get Reanimator tempo in one deck. You have to sort of like choose one or the other. The super efficiency of Troll of Khazad-dûm being an Entomb in itself while getting you a land and while being a reanimatable target is quite powerful. And the fact that it's just a common means that it's not going to like affect anyone's sort of
pockets
and stuff. So I quite like that. Same with Sorin Spawn. Cloud Post players are going to be annoyed, and the Eldrazi players are also going to be annoyed. But you know what? You've had your fun. Time to stop breaking the rules of engagement, as that was quoted here. So great bands out of Legacy. I think Legacy will continue to be a combo focused format initially, until the control decks sort of come and adapt to it, and then the tempo decks will obviously took a big prof from this, because the tempo decks have found their identity again.
I think that I can't speak too deeply about Legacy because I'm not as knowledgeable in Legacy as I am of other formats. Troll seems like, to me, it seems like a bid to buy some time. Fingers crossed the format can figure itself out with Sorin Spawn gone. At some point, it's going to have to be Entomb, though, if this carries on. Entomb is an issue. Do you not agree?
So, Entomb... I don't see Entomb as a Legacy staple card, because it was banned once. It's not been in the format forever. It has been
really?
banned.
That's interesting.
It's been unbanned. The problem with Entomb going is that you kill an archetype potentially.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. I like having an archetype still around. It's not an archetype that's top of the meta. It's not a super oppressive archetype. It can get your game turn 1. But I like the fact that exists. I think it's good that exists. I think there's a player base that's existed for a long time that you don't want to sort of segregate out the format. I think what Wizards needs to do with Legacies, they need to make it an enjoyable format. And I think things like the Oops All Spells decks are really unenjoyable. Obviously, Dimir Reanimator being everywhere before this ban was really unenjoyable. I think if you play Legacy and you get past turn 3, the games are so sweet. Oh my god, it's like the best Magic you can play. The games are so sweet if you can get past that initial. Oh my god,
it's like an RC. You just got to get past round 3, and you're golden.
Just go past turn 3.
I think Legacy is such a difficult one because the Legacy players adore the format. I think that this is probably not possible, but it would be very cool to have a Legacy council like we do with Pauper.
Yes, I agree. I like that. A lot of people don't. I know Brian Koval and in the cast of his podcast, they don't agree with that. But I just think if you have that, it's amazing. But the thing what Pauper have and Legacy doesn't, Pauper has Gavin Verhey, and Gavin Verhey is a massive important sort of player in that space because he's so passionate about that format and he's built a community around that format and the panel is. As far as I've seen, they've done a good job because we'll move on to Pauper in a little bit, but they've done a good job, and I think Legacy would benefit because Legacy now is essentially a community format. It's a format of passionate people who have a privilege enough to own these cards, especially in paper. And online you can bet people who grind Legacy potentially won't own the cards, but usually if you're playing Legacy, you own some of the cards or you own at least the deck. People playing the pet decks. The potential in Legacy is fantastic. It's a shame that the Modern Horizon cards and supplementary products have been spoiling it in a way, as they've done.
Supplementary products have really hit it hard. It's like if you look at the most recent bans, Troll of Khazad-dûm, Soen Micah Spawn, Psychic Frog. Is Grief banned in Legacy as well, right? That was the big one. Yeah, so all 4 of these heavy hitters are from Modern Horizons and or other supplemental products.
It's just been the case with Legacy that you have to create a really enjoyable game state, and I think that's what these bans are trying to do. Not necessarily destroying the highest. I know that Blue Black Reanimate was the highest played deck, but it's not necessarily destroying the highest played decks because Micah Spawn wasn't as high played as other decks, but it's all about creating this enjoyable thing. I would like to see some more unbans, and I would like to see more aggressive bans, but hey ho.
What would you have unbanned of interest? What do you think can get unbanned in Legacy? I'm not too familiar with it myself.
I don't know. The ban list, I've not looked at the ban list. I do think that there's probably stuff on there that is laughably, Earthcraft, for example. Like, what's that do with them?
Yeah, fair.
But yeah, shall we have a quick talk about Pauper? I don't want to spend too much because I don't want to take away sort of the spotlight from the Pauper community that I've had a massive shake up, and I don't want to sort of steal any content from them. But the Pauper BnRs is probably akin to what Modern had last December. They've had they've almost had 3 pillars of the format banned, which is Baskin Brewscale, which was an oppressive combo with Glee, Kuldorth of Rebirth, which was made the sort of red aggro deck super aggressive, especially with Goblin Bushwhacker, and then you had Deadly Dispute, which has been seen in all black sort of decks, and you paired Deadly Dispute with Ica Wellspring to draw 3 cards, so it was really they're just everywhere. But they did unban Prophetic Prison, so you might see some Tron sort of shenanigans coming back, and they did unban High Tide, which was
nice,
really interesting, really cool.
Very cool.
A lot of excitement for the Pauper community. I think this is a big shake up. If I was, I am a Pauper player, but if I was a more intrigued, like sort of established Pauper player, I am still excited by this BnR, by the way, but I'd be more excited. I'd be very excited to brew and thingy. It might be worth checking out our friends Casting Commons for podcast and TZLMTG for brews. They're all over the Pauper stuff. Like I said, I'm not going to talk too much on Pauper because they're just better. They're just doing it better than us, in quite frankly, in that format, and I'm happy for that.
Yeah, and the only thing I can say from a pauper point of view is you have banned 3 modern playable cards. Seems fair to me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. Um, a really cool BnR. I hope these come up often. I hope they get rid of the scheduled BnR because I think this is
Mm.
too long gone. But yeah, anything to add, Sam? I know this is going to be a quick, short, sharp, instant reaction.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
no,
we didn't have Danny with us today because Danny's,
yeah,
I don't know,
celebrating.
he's celebrating, he's pruning his eyebrows or something. I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah, I think this this BNR in particular doesn't have an upcoming one, does it? They've not mentioned an upcoming BNR,
I know that I've read.
so it's
I
sort
presume
of
that's scheduled in any way, and they'll
yeah.
schedule it. But um, it's really exciting to
Hopefully,
go into this new
yeah,
modern season anyway.
love it. Yeah, can't wait honestly. And irregardless, I'm going to lose to Psychic Frog, but at least I'll do without Breach being a problem.
Uh, Psychic Frog is my bay. If they ever delete Psychic, I say delete. If they ever ban Psychic Frog, I'm going to take my collection, and that sea that's out that window because I've got the
Mm.
Irish sea behind my house. I'm going to yeet my collection into that sea and be done with it, and go get
What's he?
and
If you
go
ever want
get.
to get rid of him, he's just said easy way to get rid of him.
I'll go get a boring hobby like golf or something. Ugh. Let's not do that.
Yeah, none of that.
None of that stuff. Anyway, thank you everybody for joining us on this sort of impromptu episode of Battle Chads. We want to get our reactions in. Like I said, the next episode of Battle Chads will be it was recorded before the BnR because we wanted to get the subject recorded that we talked about. Really interesting one, that we feel anyway. And we were just a little fun thing at the end to try and do our predictions, and then post see if we were right or not. Anything to add, Sam, before we finish?
No, thank you all again. Thank you very much for joining us, and hopefully see you at round one.
See you at round one. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell us your reactions on the BnR. Did you enjoy what you saw? Would you have liked more? Would you have liked less? Give us a comment, and we will surely to reply back. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter as well, where we are. I've got 2 new co-hosts now who've been active on Twitter, so they can respond.
Yes.
If I don't see it anyway.
Yes.
Cheers, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.